Hello everybody, I'm Oroku to Fix It Out, and today is an exciting day. I actually was able to find a 98 Celica that was at a junkyard, and so I was able to get a lot of parts in order to get this car closer to 100%. Now the goal here is to get this car to be 100% working, which includes fixing a whole bunch of tiny things that wasn't working when I first got this car. These are some of the parts that I was able to find, not this, from the junkyard that I'm actually going to be able to use. I got a breather hose connector, which if you guys remember from my video where I was replacing the valve cover, this actually broke off. So I was able to use a Camry one in the meantime, and unfortunately it wasn't the right size, but it was able to work. So I was able to get the actual one for the Celica. I got some beauty covers for the door panel. I was able to get taillight harness, because it's actually a very common issue with these taillights, where the inside of these becomes so corroded to the point where it won't actually connect to the light bulb, and then you no longer have a tail light, which is what happened with mine. So I'm going to test my luck out with this one to make sure that all the tail lights work. Some parts for the door panel, a part in order to get the fuel cap to lock. Some people actually take these out because they don't like the locking fuel cap. They just like to go to a gas pump and open it up. But you just never know these days with people siphoning fuel. So I will put this back on. And then of course I've got these door panels, which is actually very common that these break off, and so they tend to just slide down and they don't stay in place. So I was able to find the controls with the panel still intact. And for a new part, I actually ended up purchasing this washer pump. Now, if you were to get the original Denso ones, they tend to be roughly about $100. I decided to give this one a try. It's a brand called Mail. No idea how to pronounce that, but it is a $25 part versus a $100 part. So I'll be sure to link this down in the description, and I'll give you guys live updates as to whether or not this craps out pretty soon. But I decided to give this one a try. If you have a Coupe, then it's actually going to be slightly different. Coupes and Convertible, the pumps are going to be slightly different. This is going to be one that I got as a test from a Coupe. It has two lines coming from it. This one actually only has one, and that's because the Convertible only has the front windshields to worry about. The Coupes have the back to worry about as well. So then there's this line that connects to the back. So you're going to want to get a different one than the one that I linked down in the description. And with the last thing that I was lucky to find, I ended up picking up this cruise control switch for my Celica. Now my cruise control has not been working for the longest time, as well as mine is broken off just right over here. I'll actually show you guys when I install this, and I'll also show you guys all the failed attempts at trying to find some that are compatible from other cars that are out there, and I'll show you how to not waste your time with that and to just see if you can find one that was originally made for your Celica. So with all of this, let's get to it. So starting with this breather hose that goes from the valve cover over to the air hose. As you can see, the ones that you can get off of the Camrys actually end up going in there. They don't go flush, but they're able to at least work in the meantime while you see if you can find one from a Celica. If you have that missing, then you're gonna hear like an annoying whistle sound, and so that'll just prevent it from doing that. So we're just gonna start by popping this out. I'm going to remove the spark plug wires so that way I can get to the hose clamp. Set these aside. Take off the hose clamp, and then remove the hose. Now here you can tell the difference. You can actually get this hose from literally anywhere. It doesn't have to be molded. This one is slightly molded, but you can get any hose to get it. The most important part is this breather. If you broke it off, if you happen to have broken it off, this is what the one from the Celica looks like. These are the ones from the Camry. They are different sizes. This one can actually fit inside of here. So it is temporary. You can get that done until you can find a Celica one in the meantime. But mine is broken off, so let's just install the new one. So I'm just going to wedge this piece just like that. Get this hose clamp over to where it needs to be. Which, by the way, I hate this design for hose clamps. I prefer the other design where you don't have to get both in order to clamp it down. Just get it started so that way you can slip it on. So now we could just slip on the new hose and get this to fit in place. And then we just push this in. And then I'll make sure the clamp is in position, put the spark plug wires back. And next, since I'm going to work on the cruise control switch, then it's going to be a good idea just to remove the negative terminals, since we're going to be working near the airbag. Be sure to take that off, and from there we can move our way inside. Now, to move our way into the cruise control lever, as you can see here, mine's actually broken. It's not even staying in place. But even before that, it was not even turning on. or off, so it was time to replace it anyways. It's no big deal. And to replace it, like I said, the first thing I did was disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. Now I did that because this is the airbag right over here, and you want to avoid accidentally setting that off, so be sure to disconnect the battery. But in order to remove this, all there are 2 T30 screws right here and on the other side as well. So we'll go through and unscrew it. Now these are pretty tough on there, so you might have to like crank on it in order to get it off. Once it's off, then it's pretty easy to take off. So you just do one over here and one down here. Now I'm going to show you, if you're trying to replace this yourself, then this plastic piece over here prevents this bolt from coming out, which actually has it so that this bolt right over here is still on the airbag, and then it actually will struggle to come out. One thing that you could do is this plastic actually tends to be a little flexible. So then just grab like a pry tool or a screwdriver if you're careful and pull this back, and same thing with the other side, and you should be able to get the center part out. Be sure not to leave it hanging, so you want to put it in a position where it's not hanging by the wire, and there exposes our cruise control lever. To remove this, all you have to do is push here. You have to push on this tab right here, and then this should just slide out. Over here, the ground should just slide out as well. And then from there, it's just 2 Phillips head screws that you can get through this hole over here and then right over here, and then the entire assembly should come out. But to save you guys a little bit on time, you should get the one that's specifically made for the Celica. I figured since the Celica is actually kind of like a Camry, then perhaps the Camry has the same one. So this is actually the one for the Camry, and this is the one for the Celica. As you can tell, there's a different mounting point. And not only that, as you can see, it sits different. This one like notches up, and then this one is going to be straight across. So this is going to be a whole different unit. So my next thought process was to look up this part number, the 18A009, and I was able to find one with the same housing as it. The only issue is it's the wrong connector, but I was fortunate enough to find one. These actually ran me roughly about $4 at the junkyard, so not bad at all. And it's got all the right connectors, and so we'll connect this and see if it even works. So with the Phillips head, we'll just remove the 2 screws. And then from there, we should be able to just take out the cruise control lever. And now we put the new one in. So now we just tighten down the 2 bolts. Had to have patience with this bottom one because it was a pain to get on. Doesn't need to be too tight, just needs to hold it in place. Push the connector until it clicks. Connect our ground wire back up. And then we can mount center part on, and then tighten down the 2 bolts again. And then we tighten the screw on the other side, and it's good to go. So now we move on to the washer pump. Now the washer pump is actually located behind the splash shield on the passenger side. It's actually mounted on the washer reservoir. It's actually very simple in order to take this off. There's a hose that's right over here, and then a connector, and then this you just have to pry off. It's held in by this rubber seal that connects it to the washer reservoir. First, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a drain pan underneath. And with the drain pan underneath, we can remove this hose that's right over here. Be careful not to tear it. And with it removed, it's going to start draining all the washer fluid, so make sure you have a clean pan underneath in order to reuse the fluid if you wanted to. And to remove this connector, all you have to do is push down on this tab right over here, and then you should be able to just pop out the connector. And there's the connector. Now that that's out of the way, what we have to do is we just have to pry the old washer pump off. So I'm going to go at it with a pry bar and hope that that just comes out. There we go. I was able to get it off just by prying at it with the pry bar, which was actually a pretty easy job. That actually ended up going in a lot easier than I thought. I just went from like the bottom and then pushed it up, and it just snapped into place, and it looks like it's not leaking anymore. I mean, I guess the reservoir is empty, but I just went ahead and connected this hose. I just have to go ahead and connect this connector. There we go, and now it's connected, and it should be good to go. I'm actually pretty excited to test this out. I actually have to go and get some more washer fluid. There's a lot of contaminants in there. I'm guessing there was just a lot of leftover stuff, and I don't want that to get in the system. So I'm just gonna go ahead and buy new washer fluid, and then I'll test this out at the end of the video. The next thing that I'm gonna fix is on the door panel over here. This is actually supposed to be held down by this clip that is supposed to be right over here. As you can see, on the one that I pulled from the junkyard, it's supposed to have this tab, and that's supposed to push down over here, and that is supposed to actually prevent this from sliding. and this rattle is enough to drive me crazy, so I bought a new one to replace it. We just take off these clips, nice and easy. Put the 2 connectors on the new one. Slide this part in first. There we go, and then we just push this down. There we go. No sliding. This one was actually worse. This one you can actually see the hole around it, so, and it was super easy to pop off. So we'll just do the same thing for the other side. Push down on this connector, pop it out, grab the new one, and then just slide the new one into place, and look at that. Looks good. Then we just make sure that the windows controls work. It looks like we're good to go. And the last thing on the list today is going to be the tail light. It appears as if one of the brake lights is actually not working, and the reason why is going to be because one of the tail light harnesses is actually burnt, and this is what it should look like. This is with the brake on. So we got to remove the tail light in order to see what's going on. To remove it, it's going to be these 2 10mm bolts right over here. And then the last bolt, you just have to remove this cover, which will expose. It should expose a 10mm bolt just right over here. And with that, that'll just allow us to just be able to pull out the tail light. Now this is going to actually be the problem one. As you can see, I actually replaced it with a LED unit thinking that would fix the issue. But when I did take out the bulb, I actually noticed that one of the connection points is very, very melted. So it's not even making contact, which is the reason why the brake lights are not working. I bought the harness, and what I have to do is just cut and splice the new harness on there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure there's a decent amount of length here, probably cut off 2 inches, about 3 inches in. I ripped one of the harnesses off the junkyard, so I just have to make sure there's probably, I'm gonna cut out probably about a finger length's worth of wire on this one. And then I'm going to strip off roughly about 1 inch of wire off of each one. Now one option that I have is to use these butt connectors. The way that they work is you just slip these through and then you crimp them down on both ends. You just match the colors and it would work, but I'm a firm believer that if you can solder something, that you should. So I'm going to actually solder this on there. So I already stripped these wires. I'm just gonna slip some heat shrink on there so that after we solder it, it'll be nice and protected and not making contact with any other wires or ground. So I'm just going to match the colors. I'm going to try to fit the strands in and twist them. We dip the solder in some rosin. So we just heat up the bottom and then we get the solder just to melt on top. Should be pretty quick. Just like that. And then we just do the same thing for the other cables. Now that we have 3 strong, solid connections, then we just slip the heat shrink right over. And then we apply some heat just to get it to shrink. Now that we have 3 solid connections, now we can just pop it back in and do a test to make sure that it's all working. Here are the brakes. And now with everything working, all we have to do is just bolt it back into place, putting back those 3 bolts, and we should be good to go. Now I'm gonna run down to the auto parts store to get some windshield wiper fluid in order for me to be able to test the windshield wipers, and then I'll test the cruise control as well to make sure that at least turns on. There are a couple things that still need to be done. This top is just worn, it has holes on it, and so this will have to go. I'm debating whether or not I should make a video or whether or not I should pay somebody to replace it, but this will get replaced, as well as it needs some paint work. We have some clear coat painting over here. We have some rust spots right down here and right down here, so it may have to go for a full paint job, but we'll see what a professional body shop has to say. But let me run down to the auto parts store and I'll be right back. And I'm back. Now I just gotta fill the tank up. Awesome. There's no leaks underneath it. Now it's time to test everything out. Now that we're in, there's just 2 things to test. Number 1's going to be the cruise control, just to make sure that it lights up. I've actually never seen it before because it never worked before, so... Oh, and there it is, right down there. So that lets me know that the lever's working, and so that's good to go. And the last thing to check is the windshield wiper fluid. So all I got to do is pull back. Oh, and there we go. Yep, turns out it was just a bad pump. I've still got quite a few things that I want to do to this car. I've got a brake fluid flush. I've also got a coolant flush. If you guys want to see those videos, let me know down in the comments below. I did have a video of me doing it to my 2000 GMC Sierra, so if you want to know what the process is on that, you could watch those videos. But if you wanted to see it exactly on this car, then just let me know. Otherwise, I'll just do it off camera. But if you found this video useful, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already, please subscribe to my channel and help share my videos in order to help this channel grow. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching.